Buongiorno, buonasera, benvenuti amici, welcome my friends. My name is Vincenzo and welcome to my channel, Fountain Pen Therapy. Well, as you know, folks, for those of you who have been following my channel recently, I've started a weekly recap whereby I kind of review, highlights, trends, news, anything that needs to be talked about during that week in our fountain pen collecting, be it touching inks, pens, or paper. However, I've interrupted that weekly recap to present to you last week part one of a two-part series that try to go a little bit deeper into this Grail pen phenomena. I presented to you part one and give you some of my thoughts. In that first part, I discussed my own journey and what I believe is perhaps a journey that's shared by a lot of people in this community. And I went through a couple, the 4, 5, 6 phases that are that usually we go through, or at least that I went through. And I think that was an interesting. I know you guys liked it. I got some very positive comments, generally speaking. So today, what I present to you is part two of that two-part series. And when I left you in part one, we discussed, what comes next. The last phase that we had discussed is the next one. In other words, keep getting the next pen or the next Grail pen. And some of us just keep getting more and more and more and more or more pens that we think are Grail. Never mind ordinary pens. We're talking about Grail pens. And some of us choose to exit. And there's two ways to exit. We either have an exit plan without really promising that we would not purchase anything, but we put a plan in place that will allow us to say, okay, we're stopping at least for the time being. And some of us actually have an exit pen. In other words, we buy that final Grail pen and never to come back to that sort of phenomena ever again, which is quite a commitment, I can tell you, especially for us, fountain pen fanatics. In my case, I chose the exit plan. I've not yet purchased that exit pen, but my exit plan was to sit back and take Dr. Brown's advice and say, you know what? I'm just going to sit back. I have 300, 400 pens. I have plenty of pens to enjoy. Maybe go back to some of the old pens that I had purchased years and years ago that I haven't used for weeks, months, perhaps even years. And just try to see what do I have in my collection. Maybe my tastes have changed. Give you one example is a pen with a beautiful fine nib that I wasn't using because I wasn't into fine nibs. I was into stubs. And now all of a sudden having discovered the fine and medium nib, that pen becomes like as if I just purchased it yesterday. And part of that exit plan, that is enjoying the pens that we do have, I was asked by one of my viewers and say, well, Vincenzo, can you suggest to me, I don't have the money or I don't want to spend the money that is required to buy, the classic Grail pens, a PELIKAN M1000 at $1,000 or a MONTBLANC 149 at $1,200. I don't have or I don't want to spend that kind of money. Are there any alternatives, cheap alternatives? Cheap is a bad word. I would say affordable, really affordable alternative where I can get a sensation of that Grail pen that everybody speaks of without that price tag. Now, you can't compare a pen that costs $1,000 and that has all kinds of features and has been around for years and years with a $15 pen. Some would argue it's an unfair comparison. But I would argue that, we got to look at certain factors and let's see, do we have Grail pen alternatives? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the object or the subject that I'd like to discuss with you in this second episode or second part of that two-part series. We'll look at Grail pen alternatives. Are there such a thing? If so, what are they? What are my choices? What have I done to be able to propose to you my Grail pen alternatives? Well, stay tuned. Get a beverage. I've got my espresso. Where is it? Here it is. And sit back. It's a lengthy video, but with timestamps so you can pick and choose. It's meant to replace my weekly recap. So Folks, stay tuned. I hope you'll enjoy this. Okay, so we're back. So we're going to discuss Grail Pen Alternatives. I got to tell you that this project or this episode or video, I had an absolute ball putting together. First of all, what you have to understand is that I went through approximately 300 pens. I inked several of them, if not most of them, tried them all out, changed nibs, and to try to come up with Grail Pen Alternatives that I could propose and not be totally embarrassed about, put it this way. Now, what's the first point of reference? Well, if you're going to have a Grail Pen alternative, well, then you've got to look at what your Grail Pen references are. And some people might say that none of these or all of these or some of these are actually Grail Pens. But these are my Grail Pens, and these are the Grail Pen references to which I will refer to in the video. One, we have my MONTBLANC, a MONTBLANC 146, or a special MONTBLANC 146 that I have. I have a MONTBLANC 149. I have the Pilot Custom 823. I have the PELIKAN M1000. I also added in there the CONID bulk filler. I don't have one, but I consider that as a bulk or a Grail pen and have some alternatives to suggest. And I do so humbly, even though not having in my hands the actual CONID bulk filler. And lastly, I had to choose an Italian pen. I mean, I have a couple of Italian pens that I would consider to be Grail pens, but I didn't want to go through all of them, so I picked one representative of the Italian pens, if you will. And these days, Leonardo Officina Italiana is a very popular brand, so I chose a Momento Zero Grande 2.0 with a Le Fenice nib as my Grail pen. I think it is probably today my favorite Italian pen that I use on a regular basis. So that's my Grail pen, Italian pen candidate, if you will. I also looked at the King of Pen in both the 1911 King of Pen and the Pro Gear. Again, even though I don't own one, but I've attempted to propose things. And I've also lastly looked at the Pilot Custom URUSHI. Again, a pen that I do not own, but again, I took a stab at trying to propose something that I think you will find interesting. And so those are my reference points. Now, in order to decide what is a viable alternative or even a candidate, I looked at several factors. First of all, I looked at general design and resemblance to the actual thing, if you will. The feel, the comfort level, the writing experience, how does that pen fit into your hands and feel? Obviously, we need to look at the nib. How is that writing, the actual nib experience? And obviously price. So all of my alternatives, and that was the objective, was to look at affordable or low-priced alternatives that people can afford easily and not have to mortgage their homes to buy. And the price points that I'm looking at anything below 100 for sure, $100 Canadian, in fact. Most of them are probably under $50, and some, are between 50 and 100. And I'm not even sure I'm getting any pens cost me more than $80, frankly. But in order to be safe, because I didn't check the prices, the current prices of all these alternatives, in order to be safe, I said to myself, the parameter will be, the pen's got to cost less than $100. So there you have the reference points and the basis of my analysis. Now, folks, let's make one thing very, very clear. This is not a scientific experience or experiment. What I did is, I try to be as accurate as possible. I try to have some fun. I try to have some fountain pen therapy that brought me back to my collection, and to pull from that collection all kinds of pens that I want to share with you, with changing of nibs, etc., and to have some fun with them. They're not perfect replacements. They're not perfect substitutes. They are not perfect alternatives. They are my alternatives. that I propose that you could easily feel comfortable with and just come close to that Grail pen experience that the real thing can offer. There you have. So that is really the basis. So what I propose is that I take 1 second, go to my overhead camera, lay out the first Grail pen reference point, and we'll take the show from there. Stay tuned. Okay, so the first reference Grail pen is this beautiful Montblanc. Thanks to my wife again. This is the actual name of this is the Meisterstück Solitaire Vermeil Pinstripe 146. So I think it's a little bit bigger than a normal 146, but that's the reference point. And it's beautiful. It's got, as you can see, it's got this pinstripe design. It's all gold plated. It has a beautiful 18 karat nib, Montblanc nib. This is a double broad. This was during my early days where, you know, I like big juicy nibs as opposed to fine and medium. I'm not sure that I would choose this kind of nib today, I've got to tell you. And that shows how much we've evolved, or we evolve over time. This thing is a little too broad for me right now. It just doesn't give me that springiness that I look to for Montblanc. But it's a beautiful nib. I have no illusions. It's a gorgeous pen. It is a piston filler. So this pen has given me many nice days, and I really enjoy it. So that's the first reference point. Sorry, the camera is shaking because my phone is ringing, believe it or not. And it's the phone that's taping right now. So let's just take a few seconds. Okay, there it goes. I apologize for that. So there you have it. That's the first pen. Now I said to myself, okay, what can I pull out of my collection that resembles the pen and the writing experience of this pen? Now keep in mind there's a lot of metal here. There is less resin, if you will. Okay, but that's the reference point. So we're going to put the reference pen right there, and we're going to take a look at what I've got here. Well, what do I have here is these are the writing samples of all of these alternatives. And what I propose is that we look at each one at a time. You could see that on the first line there, okay, is an Ongdian N6 with a Kegeloo number 6 steel medium nib. This is the pen, folks. And some would argue that there's actually some 146 that resemble this sort of variation, if you will. And as you can see, the nib that I've chosen for this pen is this beautiful Kegeloo, not inexpensive, but probably one of the most underrated nibs, the steel nibs that you can find. This thing beats any Yowo, it beats any Bock, beats any Schmidt in my view, any other Chinese nib. This thing is just absolutely a gusher. And it is a medium, and it almost writes like a medium broad, if you will. And I think that in this pen, this is what I got at first line. As you can see, very wet. And maybe we'll do a writing sample at the end of this. The next pen on my list is, I went back and realized I had 10, 15 of these X450s, Jinhao 450s. And I had just kind of abandoned them and left them behind and hadn't used them for months, if not years. And I decided to pull one out. I didn't like the Jinhao nib that was there, a kind of a standard nail, if you will, that we are all familiar with. So I said, what? I like the shape of this thing, and it does resemble somewhat the 146. Black classic with a silver band. And one would even argue that this clip actually resembles the brand new 149s, 100th anniversary 149s that are out. And what kind of a nib could I put in this? And what I chose to do is I chose to garnish this pen with a Pen BBS number 1 calligraphy nib. Okay, steel number 6. So there you have the writing sample for that Jinhao 450 with the Pen BBS #1 calligraphy steel nib #6 size. So that's second. Third one is this Moonman or Majon P136, okay, with a Majon #6 steel 1.1 stub that I put on this. So I didn't go with the fine or with the medium. I went with the 1.1 stub. And there you have the writing sample. And it's a third on that list right there, as you can see. So that's my second choice, if you will. Third choice is this Kegeloo, again, the resemblance to the, the 146, the torpedo shaped, etc. Not a perfect, as I mentioned, but it does resemble. This is a Kegeloo 356 resin with a Kegeloo #6 steel medium nib. And I got to tell you, this thing is such a pleasure to write with. And, I don't know what this thing is going for, maybe $20, $25. Okay. There you have the next choice. What else have I got on this list? I've got this Pen BBS, again, cigar shaped, resembles a 146, perhaps a little bit thinner and a little pointier at the ends, with this beautiful Galaxy resin, Pen BBS #6 steel medium nib, the Pen BBS 366. There you have it. I think this is a gorgeous pen, very nice writing experience, and really a beautiful resin. Next is the recent Jinhao 9016 with a medium nib, #6, not #8, but it's the heartbeat nib. So it's not the standard nail, if you will. It's the heartbeat medium nib. Actually, medium nib, that's correct. That gives me a fairly, as you can see right there, a fairly fine line, I would say to you. It is not as wet or juicy as the #8 sized medium Jinhao nibs, I will tell you. But still very nice, smooth, very nice line. So it's anywhere between fine and medium. What have I got for you next? Next on my list is this, the Pen BBS. Take a look at that pen. Isn't that beautiful? Nice checkered pattern. Pen BBS, I think this is the, one second, I don't want to miss, yeah, it's the 480. This is the 480, very nice with a Pen BBS medium nib, the new Pen BBS M nibs, if you will. Very, very nice writer. And as you can see, there is the writing sample of the Pen BBS right here, 480 with the Pen BBS #6 steel medium nib. What have I got for you next is the Angdian 431. This is kind of the, I reviewed this as part of the forgotten Angdian pens. I think this pen is absolutely gorgeous. A little on the heavy side because it's all metal, but some very nice, elaborate scenery there, Chinese motif. And I think this is a really, really nice writer. It's got a standard Angdian medium nib that writes very smoothly, very nice. I think it's a, it's got a classic look like the classic 146, except flat top. And I think it's a viable alternative. And as you could see, the writing sample there, Angdian 431 with that standard medium-sized nib. Next on my list is this 629 Wingsung. I was a little disappointed with this pen. This is the flat top version. It's a lot lighter than the 630 version, I must say. But that in that Wingsung fine nib really writes fine. It's not as juicy as the #8 sized fine nibs from Wingsung. But nonetheless, a fine nib, good feel, very inexpensive. But not in this list, it made my, at the end, if you will, not my favorite though, I got to tell you, but some people would really like this. So I thought I'd include it. What's next on, and you can see the writing sample right here, so you can see the much finer line, if you will. Next on my list is this Laban Tarocco, very nice green swirl, typically sized, cigar shape, resembles somewhat the 146. Very nice pen that I had just tucked away, haven't used in months and years, with a very, very nice Yowo Goulet branded medium nib that writes just absolutely really a nice writer. There you have it. So it's the Laban Tarocco with the Yowo number 6 steel. Actually, it's a broad nib. Yeah, it's the broad nib. Sorry. Next on my list is this Asvine P50, a recent addition with the Asvine medium nib. These piston filler. These nibs are absolutely faultless. I mean, they just work like a charm. I've never had a problem with an Asvine nib. I know some of you have, but it's the exception, I must say. Does resemble a lot the 146 general shape, if you will. And so that's my next pen, and there you have it, the P50 here, right here. Beautiful, beautiful line. Very nice. Lastly, the Ongdian N23. This is the Year of the Rabbit edition, if you will, with a Year of the Rabbit nib. And this nib is better than the standard medium nib. I don't know if it's fine. I think it's more of a medium broad nib, but it gives you such a beautiful, smooth, and really broad line that I really had no choice but to include. The N8, I believe that's the sister pen of this. The red maple leaf one, if you will, was probably just a runner-up to this one, but I figured I'd go with the actual Year of the Rabbit pen, which is this one. So there you have my alternatives, all of which I think are just absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous pens and very viable alternatives to my Montblanc. Are they perfect? Absolutely not. My top 3 choices are right here. It's this N6. When I look at price, resemblance, this Jinhao 450 with that nib, and this P136, which, some people have said is a complete imitation of the 146. There you have it. The rest are not in order of preference. If I would have to say which pen would I prefer from all of this, I would have to say the Asvine, the Kigaloo, or tops, and so is this Laban. So, folks, there you have it. So what I propose now is that we do a writing sample of my 3 favorite, which are these 3 right here. Stay tuned. Okay, so we're back, and this is Tomoe River Sanzen, the new Tomoe River paper. Okay, let's take a look at this. So the reference pen here is this Montblanc and I'm going to make it short, 146, okay, pinstripe. And it's got a double broad 18 karat nib. Okay. And let me just perhaps get a little closer here so you can appreciate the writing sample. And my top 3 choices as alternatives would be this Hongdian N6, I don't know if you can appreciate that, but let me tell you, one of the smoothest nibs. This thing rivals any Grail pen. Now with that Kigaloo, very inexpensive. You can pick up these nibs on Etsy or AliExpress, and very hard to beat. That's the first one. The second one is this Jinhao X450 with pen BBS #1 calligraphy nib. And I hesitate to say it's fine or medium, but it writes like a medium. Okay. This, by the way, is me. Sorry about that. Here we go. You can actually even see the line variation and even some of the shading, and very nice. The next choice is this P136, just because it resembles, you know, the 146. I had no choice but to put it up there, and that nib just kind of justifies even more my choice. So this is the Mahjong P136, or the Moonman P136, with a Mahjong 1.1 steel number 6 stub. Okay, folks, there you have it. Alternative pen for the Montblanc 146. Okay, so the next reference pen. Well, the next Grail pen that I looked at, of course, is my Montblanc 149. You guys are familiar with this. Many of you may even have one. Very nice, beautiful number 9, I think, sized, huge nib, gorgeous, two-toned. That is a broad nib on my 149. Just a beautiful Grail pen. Some would say overrated and too expensive. But having said that, I went through that phase and I really enjoyed this. Maybe it's because, again, my wife came through and bought this for me, one of my milestone birthdays. So that's the reference pen. What have I got to you in terms of alternatives? Well, I think one of the most obvious choices, a recent Chinese edition from Qinao. This is the Qinao X159. Talk about resemblance, with that very juicy number 8 size Qinao nib. I think just a perfect combination. Very, very nice. Cannot say anything bad about this pen. Some people have criticized the build quality. I've not had any issues, no cracking, no. The pen is light, a little bit lighter than the real thing, but its shape, its feel, the writing experience, especially with that nib, rivals. And some would even say that that nib may even be smoother than the actual real thing. So there you have it. My second choice is this, and in terms of writing sample, there you have my X159 right at the top there. The next choice is this Wing Sung 630 with a steel number 8 fine nib. Again, gorgeous writer. It's a piston filler. The other one was as we know, a cartridge converter, but this one is a piston filler with a window as well. One of my favorite pens in my collection and in my daily routine. This thing never is always inked, and I just keep inking it. I'm never going to wash it. It's a little bit like my 149, if you will. It's going to be used almost on a weekly basis. It forms part of my rotation constantly, and I have a few more of that same pen in different colors. So there you have it. That's my next choice. After that, I chose to introduce this. I did a review on this. This is what they refer to as the GD Big Pen. You know, GD came up with several big metal pens, and this was one of them. And it's, of course, a 149 clone. And where does it have GD? I think it has GD imprinted on the inside here somewhere. Yeah, there it is. It's right on that lip there, GD 149. It's a cartridge converter. It's a metal pen. And of course, I didn't keep the nib that was there to begin with. What I did instead is that I put a fully one medium-sized nib in there. And let me tell you, the writing experience just totally changed. And as you could see, the JD 149, you'll see it right here, number 6 fully one medium nib. Just an absolutely great combination. Gorgeous nib that comes close, if not even, I got to tell you, the 149, the nib is nice, but these three kind of rival. very much. And the same goes for this FULLERWIN 017. It has the same medium FULLERWIN nib that I just referred to. It has kind of that big torpedo shape that resembles a little bit the 149. The resin is very nice, but again, the pen for the price, it gives you that same chunky feeling in your hands, if you will, and that nib is just absolutely, absolutely gorgeous. Then I have, and as you can see, the writing sample is here, FULLERWIN 017 with a steel number 6 FULLERWIN medium nib. Okay, what's next? Next is this Ranga 8BW with a steel Yowo flex nib. Yes, it is a little pointier than the standard 149s, but that's cigar shaped, and that really nice flex or elastic nib Yowo makes this pen really, really juicy. So you do come close to the 100. This is probably the one that would come closest to that $100 price mark, if you will. So a little more expensive than all the rest that you see here. And as you could see, the writing sample is right there, the Ranga. Very, very nice. Okay. Next on my list, I chose it just because of its torpedo and bulky shape, resembling a lot the 149, is this C4 Majon transparent demo pen with a medium Majon nib. Writes really nice. Never hard starts at all. And most of these pens, and perhaps with one exception, and I'll talk about it in a second, like my MONTBLANC, I pick them up and they write. Then we have the Conklin 1898. Now, this Conklin, it's the all-American kind of shape and design. I think is a gorgeous, gorgeous pen. And I bought 2 of these and reviewed them as well. I've added this to the list just because of the design, the quality of the feel, the bulkiness. But I got to tell you, I don't know what's wrong with Conklin, but the nib false starts on me all the time. I just need to push it all the time. So unlike all the other candidates or pens that you see here, this one rivals because of its shape and its overall design. But and the nib, when it does write, is really nice. The problem is I find it dries really quickly. There must be something in that design, or maybe in the nib itself. I've even put ink that's not supposed to dry up on us, and it still dries up. So that's a major, major stumbling block. But I did want to mention that its overall design is what got it to form part of this list. Now, what are my top 3 here? Well, my top 3 are here. And so what I propose is, give me a second and we'll do a writing sample. Okay, so we're back. And next reference pen is this MONTBLANC $149. Okay, gold trim. $18 karat broad nib. Smooth with a little feedback, a little not too springy, fairly stiff. Okay? But writes like a charm, never hard starts on me. First alternative is this Jinhao X159. And you could even put in this pen the Jinhao Heartbeat number 8 sized nib, and we'll see that in a few seconds, which probably would give you an even smoother writing experience, if you will, at essentially the same price. But let me tell you, this pen writes just as smooth as my 149. Next on my list, Wingsung. That's me, sorry. As you can see, for a fine, very juicy, very smooth, no hard starts, very nice alternative. So if you're looking for a similar writing experience, those two pens we just reviewed will get you that. My third candidate, and some of you might laugh, is this big metal pen. It just because of sheer resemblance and feel, and in terms of girth, and in terms of, it doesn't have a big nib, unfortunately. If it would have a number 8 size nib, it would be even better. But what I did is it had an awful nib to start with. What I did is I put a fully one in there, and you'll see in a second. So this is the JD 149 with a fully one, medium steel nib. Folks, this fully one is just as juicy as the Kegel. Kegel beats it a little bit broader, but right there. So there you have my third alternative. Folks, 149 is done. Stay tuned for the next one. Okay, next Grail pen reference, of course, is this Pilot Custom 823. Beautiful vacuum filler. This is a broad nib. Very, very nice. 14 karat. Where's 18 karat? Hold on. I forget now if this is 15 or 18. No, 14 karat nib. Beautiful. Just slightly translucent so you could see what's underneath, so to speak. Very, very nice pen. Some would say that this pen, if you have one pen and only one pen to choose, and there are no pens on this earth, which one would you pick? This has been a winner for many, and it's not as expensive as some other so-called Grail pens. So there you have my 823. Not much choices for that one. The only two essentially that I think you would be rival the resemblance anyway, is this Asvine V126 vacuum filler, and of course the Wingsung 699, which some would say is almost a replica. And you can see I've given you three choices here. You have one with the brown kind of translucent barrel, with the gray translucent barrel, and with the blue. So there you have it. In terms of writing experience, well, we'll get right into it, and we will do the writing example. For you guys, let me just take the camera and bring it up a little bit so you can appreciate a little more the pens in question. So the reference pen, of course, as I mentioned, is the Pilot it's got a 14 karat. They're referenced as the number 15 nib, if you will. This nib is gusher. It's broad, writes like a medium, and I would say to you, has just that nice hint of feedback, which makes it more than interesting. Okay, and its first alternative. Now, folks, nobody jump off their seat. But this nib, if you're looking for smoothness, this nib is smoother than the 823. However, the fun part of the 823, in my view, is that little bit of feedback, which some people would say makes a pen a lot more interesting. This one is a completely smooth nib. Very little, if any, feedback. This one is a completely smooth nib with some pencil feedback, and that's what gives it its character. But if you're looking for a smooth nib that even rivals the Custom 823, gives you the same shape, folks. This is a good alternative. Next on my list, and I have a few of these, but I just took out one. This is the Asvine V126 with a steel number 6 medium Asvine nib. This, I would say to you, has a little bit of feedback, is just as smooth as the other two, but is somewhere in between these two. The fun part of the Pilot A23 is that the feedback is unique. It really, really is unique. And I'm almost certain that it's intentional. It's not the nib that's not well tuned. It's intentional. That is the characteristic of that nib. I'm convinced of that. Whereas this one is just a little bit in between. And if I play around with that medium Asvine nib a little bit, it will be just as smooth as the Winsung 699 if that's what you're looking for. But I like that little bit of feedback, so I left it there. But there you have it. You have kind of two alternatives that rival it and kind of give you a very different writing experience, a varied writing experience that resembles but not quite the same as the A23. So these two would give you the feel of the A23, but not necessarily the same nib experience, but a very good one nonetheless. Okay, so there you have the A23. We'll be back with the next one. Okay, so we're back with the next Grail Pen reference. I'm sure you recognize it. I think that you can't go, very far when you talk about Grail pens without talking about the Parker DUOFOLD. Very expensive pen if you want to get the right one to serve as a Grail pen. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to sweep it up yet, but I do have a nice alternative, which is this DUOFOLD original, but it's the mini size, which is just an absolutely gorgeous 18 karat nib. So I'm using that as a reference point. Of course, the size varies. But it is, I think it is, in my collection anyway, a Grail pen. And so there you have it. And, it's probably the pen that is the most copied, if you will, or, that inspires the most of our pens. I have a kind of a hybrid. I have a kind of various versions of it here. First of all, I have my ADMOC, and I think they refer to it as the ADMOC DUOFOLD with a very similar clip. I have my Kegeloo 316, original 316. I have my Dieman N10. This is the Majon M7000, I believe it is. M700, sorry. This is the Lorelei 692. It's a little bulkier here, but nonetheless, it's a DUOFOLD inspiration, if you will. Then you have another Kegeloo. This is the Kegeloo 316A, but I chose to have in this one, I put the new Kegeloo long blade or long knife nibs, which are just as smooth, by the way, but different. But that could be an alternative, a very nice alternative with a different type of nib. You can't speak about alternatives of a DUOFOLD without speaking about the Jinao 100 or Century. I have many of them, and this is my favorite one with that, that galaxy blue color, beautiful gold finial. The thing about these Jinaos is that nail of a nib that some people either hate. You either hate it or love it, and that's probably why it's not number one on my list. But again, if you take this pen and replace it and put a Kegeloo nib on it, it would stand in front here with no hesitation. So if you like the shape, like the feel, very close to the DUOFOLD, and are willing to change that nib, there you have it. Okay, so that's one. This is the Moonman, because it was originally Moonman M600S. Again, a DUOFOLD shape. It does have that Moonman medium nib. No, in this one actually I put the 1.1 stub, so that's a variation on the theme, if you will. Lastly, this is a Rosetta Magellan with a number. Look at beautiful pen, and again, it's kind of a DUOFOLD inspired design. This is a more of a metal pen, and it has a Rosetta 1.1 stub on it, which writes really, really nicely. So there you have my choices. And in terms of writing samples, here they are. That's my Parker DUOFOLD right at the top there. 18 karat nib, medium. First on the list is the Jinal Century 100. Very nice though. Gives you a nice line. It's just hit and miss sometimes with those medium nibs. You have the ADMOG DUOFOLD. You have that we'll look at in a second because it's one of my favorites. The Moonman, the Kegaloo is there as well. The Lorelei is a really nice writer, I got to tell you. Very cheap, inexpensive. The Ongdian number 10, we'll look at that in a second. The Moonman M700 with a very fine nib. The Kegaloo 316, it's the old stock with a medium nib. And the Rosetta Magellan at the end. So my three favorite are right here. They're the ADMOC, the Kegaloo 316, and the Ongdian. And we'll look at the actual writing samples just in a second. Let me just close up so you can take a better close up. Now, first thing is to write with this mini pen. This thing is giving me some problems because there's no converter in it. It's always cartridge. So I'm not sure it's going to write right off the bat, but we'll see. So this is the Parker DUOFOLD. And it's the mini, okay, with an 18 karat medium nib. First alternative, this ADMOC. Look at the juiciness of this nib. ADMOC. It's got a steel perfect combination of smoothness, consistency, wetness, and feedback. That Schmidt nib is just beautiful. And I got to tell you, even inquiring minds has kind of changed his mind about the ADMOC if it comes in this kind of resin. So it may not be worth the $70, I think, or the $60 that it's being sold at. In some people's minds. In my mind, it is. It's a beautifully shaped pen, very close to the Parker DUOFOLD, and that nib makes it special. So there you go. The next choice, or top choice, is my Kegaloo .316, and I will say old because it's the old metal version of the pen with a steel number 6 Kegaloo medium nib. Talk about a juicy nib. Wow. I'm convinced that this Kegaloo nib is one of the best steel nibs, if not the best steel nib on the market. Next, I've got to put in this Ongdian. Sorry, that's me. This is the Ongdian N10, and it has a steel number 8 fine nib. I think it has an original design. It has kind of a DUOFOLD look to it, if you will, in terms of its shape and overall resemblance. This pen was chosen just for one reason, and one main reason is that number 8 sized fine nib. Really, really nice nib. Always wet, always constant. And, you know, the pen is not shabby looking either. It was my pen of the year, I think, last year, and deservedly so. So it may not be the best imitation or best DUOFOLD resembled pen, but it's there, and it deserved a position there as my top 3. There you have it. The runner-up. I have to mention this Century 100. I think it comes very close. And like I said, replace that nib with a Kigaloo nib, and you've got a beautiful Parker DUOFOLD alternative. That's it for Parker DUOFOLD. Stay tuned for the next one. Okay, so next on my list, next Grail pen. If you have to speak about Grail pen, I think this pen is unavoidable. It is the PELIKAN M1000. To me, it is the best pen in my collection at this point in time. Recent acquisition, I'm enjoying it fully. It's got the perfect grip, weight, comfort, nib, you name it, it has it. I know that there are many alternatives in terms of other Grail pens in this world that might, you know, be better for some people, but for me, this is it. So difficult to find an alternative, but there are many Pelikan resembling pens out there. Maybe not for the 1000 shape, because a little bit bigger, more for the M800. But I figured I'd have some fun and look at my collection and see what do I have there that, you know, looks Pelikan-ish, if you will. And here they are. I have my ADMOC M800, which doesn't shy away with that Schmidt broad nib. And we'll take a look at that in a second, because it's the favorite on my collection. I love this Ongdian N1. The reason why it's up there in my mind, it does have that, you know, that kind of Pelikan-ish look, is because it has the grailish sensation to it. In other words, that beautiful embossing and you know, the metal on it, piston filler. It just, you know, beautiful finial. It has a kind of a grail look to it, if you will, and that's one of the reasons why it's up there. And then it might surprise a lot of you, but this Pen BBS 500, which has that grail, that Pelikan-ish look as well, in my view, is just a beautiful pen, and we'll take a look at the writing sample in detail in a second. And then, of course, you got all the Ongdian variations. You have this one, which is the, and I keep mixing them up. Okay, this is the 960. This 912, this N12 would have taken, you know, maybe first, you know, top 3, but it's a piston filler without a window. But the nib is also very nice. It's an Ongdian medium nib, very nice pen, and some would say is rivals even the M800. Then you have my is it N9? I forget the numbers. N1, excuse me. So this is the N1, a little bit shorter, but nonetheless very nice. Again, with that, this one's got that long blade or long knife nib, very nice. And this is the N2, is it? N1S, excuse me. Keep mixing them all up. N1S. So all of these are very Ongdian looking. Another Ongdian is this N7 and the N8, if you will. Just the top part makes it very Ongdian looking. Very nice long blade, long knife nib on this one. And this one has the Ongdian standard medium rose goldish nib. Beautiful, just a beautiful writer. And that's why it made my top lists. And my Ongdian A6. When you look at it and take away all the skeleton and the shape, you see that it does have a kind of a Pelikan-ish look some would say even a DUOFOLD look, with that beautiful, beautiful nib, that fine nib, made my list as well. So in terms of writing samples, they're all here, as you could see. All very, very nice writing samples. Don't miss a beat. The nibs are just perfectly tuned. Just a wonderful writing experience for each of them. Those are my top. And here are my top 3. And we'll do an actual live writing sample for those 3. So just bear with me. I will get my pad again. Put a close-up so you can appreciate the writing sample. So there you have it. Let's look at the PELIKAN alternative. This is my PELIKAN. With that 18 karat nib. You know, it's like writing with a baby. It's so springy that you gotta be careful. You don't want, what I mean by a baby is I'm always afraid to hold a newborn. I've always been, even with my own kids, just afraid that I might just squish them and, squish their bones, if you will. A lot of people have told me no, they're the most flexible things at that age, and you shouldn't be worried about it. But they look so fragile and mini, and with my big hands, I'm afraid I'm going to do something that I shouldn't be doing. So, and it's the same thing with this nib. It's just kind of it is so intimidating of a pen. But in any event, that's my PELIKAN. So first alternative, top spot, if you will, is this PELIKAN. And just when I wanted to, it's not writing. Does it have enough ink? I'm wondering if it has enough ink. Let me just check it. I'll be right back. Yeah, I'm back. Sorry about that. A little embarrassing. My top choice didn't come through, but the reason for it was there was no ink left in it. It's my daily writer. So one of the things about this pen is it doesn't have an ink window. It's a piston filler without an ink window, and I just didn't realize there was no ink left in there in any event. Anyway, this is my ADMOC If there's any pen that comes close to the smoothness of this PELIKAN, it's this one. I got to tell you, this Schmidt nib is just fabulous. It does not have the spring that the M1000 has, because that's a really probably the springiest nib that's not a flex nib in the market, I think. But I heard that the M800 per se is not as springy as the M1000. So I would venture to say that this comes very, very close to the PELIKAN M800. There you have it. That's my top choice. I know some people have said that this pen is overpriced. I think at $70, it's a beautiful alternative. The next one on my list is this Dieman 100. And this one is a steel number 6 Dieman fine nib. Just a beautiful, beautiful writer. It's more on the fine line, of course, but let me tell you, good shape, good feel, and when you look at this pen, it gives you that Grail look. Top 3, my third favorite here and choice is this Pen BBS 500. It's got this special calligraphy, or is it the... Yeah, it's got a special calligraphy nib. You can almost see it at the point there. I don't know if you It's got kind of that architect kind of grind. Okay, very nice. That's me. I just can't write with these architect nibs. Very, very, very nice. Juicy, smooth. I got to tell you, folks, I just have to get used to these architect nibs, but I know a lot of you really like them, and that is really, really nice. I got to tell you. So that's my, and it's a beautiful, beautiful pen, and it's got that nice, filling system. It kind of a pumping there. I don't know if it's they call it a bulk filler or but it's kind of a push button, almost vacuum sort of a deal. Forget what they call it, but very nice. So there you have my PELIKAN alternatives. Be right back with the next one. Now, the next Grail pen that everybody mentions, of course, is the Custom Pilot URUSHI. Now, let's be clear here. I don't have one. Some of you may recall that I had ordered one. The order was canceled, and I chose not to buy it. The order was canceled by the retailer who realized he didn't have any medium nibs left in his inventory. And it kind of brought me back, and I said, you know what? Maybe it's a sign from the Grail pen gods that I shouldn't be buying this pen and spending $1,000. And I stopped the order, and I didn't order it and said, exit plan. And this is where we're at right now. So what you see here, of course, is that big, juicy, big metal pen by JD, whoever they are. Some people say it's Jinhao. That, is a complete clone of the custom URUSHI without the URUSHI. And of course, this is metal and the other one isn't, etc., etc. But so in that category, it's difficult to find pens that resemble the URUSHI other than these two, which are clones. I chose to call that, the kind of the big pen Grail pen, the big Grail pen. What do we have in our collection that kind of meets that definition? That huge, bulky, long, huge, oversized pen. And these are my candidates, all of which come roughly under $100. Of course, we have my JD, but I've replaced the nibs, and we'll take a look at that in a second. You have this Splendor, Ranga Splendor. We'll take a look at it because it's in my top 3 in a minute. The same thing goes with my Ranga Abhimanyu, the Grand version, and we'll take a look at that. This is the, I can't even get it out of there. Here we go. This is the Ranga Model 5 Mustard with a, do I have a 1.5 here? Yeah, a 1.5 Opus 88 stub nib. Okay, it's a huge pen, but just one of my favorites. We have the Magna Carta with that beautiful M600, I think, or M800 this is. I forget now. Yeah, the Mag 800 with that beautiful number 8 size nib that writes very nicely. Very nice addition, I've got to tell you. This may go a little bit more than $100, I must say, but I've included it because it's right on the cusp, or right on the border. This is an Opus Bella, and with a titanium nib. So you see, you can buy a fairly inexpensive pen at a very good price on sale and replace the nib and put like a titanium nib, which will give it all that glare sensation, if you will. So that's an alternative that we should all explore. This is another Ranga N Model 5 with the crushed ice. This is the Ranga Splendor. No, they call this one the Splendor Peak. That's right. Very nice, huge pen. But you can get Yowo, Schmidt, or Bach nibs. This has got a 1.1 Yowo nib, and even get an number 8 size nib on there, and you're rocking and rolling, as they say. And this is a Ranga. This is the Ranga Samurai, Giant Samurai, another beautiful, huge pen with a similar 1.5 Yowo stub nib. There you have it. So my top 3, well, in that category, we have the big metal pen, we have the Ranga Abhimanyu, and the Ranga Splendor. So give me a second, and okay, so we're back for the big pen. Now the big pen, the custom URUSHI, I don't have a reference pen, but we will use this one, which is the JD Big Metal Pen. With a number 6 steel medium K-glue nib. As you could see, juicy, very nice alternative. And you get to use a big pen that resembles, you know, the custom URUSHI. If you don't like the green one, well, then we can pick the red one. And I've chosen another nib for this one. Of course, I didn't keep the original nibs. They were garbage. JD Big Metal Pen. And this one has number 6 steel broad Bexley nib. Is it EY? I think so. Okay, Bexley. Now, this nib, I'm not sure if the Bexley nibs are Bach or Yowo, but their broad nibs are just absolutely well-tuned, work very fine. I have maybe 4 or 5 Bexley pens, each with a broad nib. Very nice. So there you have it. You can switch the nibs and get the sensation of that big custom URUSHI. Now, as I said, in this category, I've you know, kind of clumped in big pens, you know, big oversized pens. And you can't speak of an oversized pen without speaking of these huge Ranga, either you know, ebonite or resin pens. This is the Splendor with a number 8 sized Bach titanium nib. So you can get a pen at $50, $60, you know, $65, but put a more, you know, a really nice nib in there. Yes, it'll run you maybe a little more than 100, but you can transform, you know, fairly affordable pen into a Grail pen very easily. Let me give you the demonstration here. Ranga Splendor with a titanium number 8 Bach broad nib. Talk about juicy, springy. Don't have to cost, it doesn't cost $1,000. You got it right there, maybe $150. So this one's a cheater because of that nib, but it's an alternative, if you will. If you're willing to spend a little bit more, you can get yourself the body that it's inexpensive and then replace that nib, and there you have it. It's right there. And, you know, the beauty about Ranga is that it gives you the unit. So you're not, when you're swapping, you know you're getting a Bach unit. So if you're going to get a Bach unit, you know you can put in there a titanium Bach nib of the similar size, a number 8 in this instance. So I think that's a great way to achieve the, you know, the sensation, the beauty, the writing experience of that Grail pen at maybe $100, $150 and not $1,000. The next one on my list is this Ranga Abhimanyu, and I never know to spell it, but I'll wing it. With just a simple Yowo, broad nib, steel, number 6. I just like the feel, big juicy pen, and tight. It's ebonite, so gives you the juiciness of that custom URUSHI, with a really fairly nice nib at less than $100. There you have it. So that's the big pen. Stay tuned for the next one. Okay, the next Grail pen reference is this Leonardo Officina Italiana Momento Zero Grande 2.0 Stardust with a Le Fenice nib. And in this regard, I figured, I think there's only really 2 candidates that can even come close, but that kind of resemble this kind of you know, Momento Zero look. And those two are the infamous or the famous Moonman M800, and you got the 4 colors there, which are almost a replica of the Memento Zero. And the other one that comes very close is the Asvine pen, which I think is the P20, that is kind of rivals the Moonman or the Majon, if you will. So there you have it. So let's get to a writing sample right away, and we'll be right back. Okay, so we're back with the Memento Zero Grande. The beautiful Le Fenice stub. Very, very nice pen, I gotta tell you. And here we have the Asvine P20 with a steel number 6 Asvine medium. And these Asvine nibs never fail. So beautiful, beautiful piston filler, just like the Leonardo. Very, very nice pen. I like this Galaxy the best. So there you have it. Now, in terms of the Moonman, I've got 4 of them here. And what I'd like to demonstrate to you is that you could take a pen, for example, this amber one. What I did with this amber one, so this is the Moonman M800, and this was the original nib. It came with a Bach fine nib. Okay? But you could take the same pen, not order the Bach nib, because they always charge you more for the Bach nib. Order the cheap Moonman or Majon nib, and you can start playing around with it. For example, in this green one, and look at the difference. I put in this is Moonman M800 with a Kegeloo nib, medium. Folks, this pen has been transformed. Very little cost. And you can have a great writing experience. And you can put in the green one, the brown one, the blue one, the purple one. In this blue one, in the Galaxy, I have, what do I have? I have a Bach stub nib. So, again, Moonman. It's a Bach, more on the italic side. Italic nib, number 6, steel. And and you can choose to put whatever you want, really. And in the purple one, if you want to go a step beyond, the pen costs you very little. I put in this purple one, Moonman, a Bach titanium broad nib. Yes, you've got to pay for the titanium nib, but with little more, and maybe you go over the 100. But certainly you're not even close to, for $100 or $150, you can transform this little gem into a writing experience, a really nice writing experience. And of course, you don't need to go for the titanium. You can very well go for that Kegeloo. And if you haven't figured out that my Kegeloo nib is a go-getter and the best nib for me yet, well, you never will. Stay tuned for the next one, folks. Hang in there. I know it's long, but hang in there. Okay, the next reference pen, again, I don't have. But, we all have heard about the King of Pen. And you have a King of Pen that kind of resembles this or this, which is the 1911 King of Pen. In other words, with the cigar shape. Or you have the King of Pen Pro Gear, which kind of, flat top, mimics more of the Pro Gear. So I try to say to myself, well, I know what they generally look like on photographs. I don't have an original, but what can I look at in my collection that kind of would resemble the King of Pen? And these are my choices. I have a Vizier, two Vizier. I have a flat top and a cigar. An Indian pen, costs you 60, 70 bucks. I have my Wing Sung 699 flat top that I've just reviewed. I have my two Jinhao 9019 with two different nibs, and we'll take a look at that in a second. And of course, I have my Vizier celluloid pen, which really kind of resembles the black one and kind of gives you that 1911 cigar-shaped look. So why don't we get straight into the writing sample? The first one is this Jinhao 9019 with a number 8 steel heartbeat. And it is the medium. So it's a medium. Just a beautiful nib. Gotta tell you, just a beautiful, beautiful nib. You got that nice size, big ink reservoir in that converter, that unique large converter. You got these pens in all kinds of different colors. You gotta get a Jinhao 9019, folks. I mean, don't even hesitate. I mean, I don't know what these things are going for these days, but it's less than $15, I think. It's completely ridiculous when you think about it. And I'm sure it comes close to a King of Pen. I don't care what anybody says. You may not know, that you're not have one because you haven't spent $1,200, but man, does it come close. Can't say any more about this. It's just a great, great, great alternative. Next thing is this Jinhao 9019 with a number 8 steel, but this is the standard medium nib. Again, can get this thing in different colors. You can get it in extra fine, you can get it in fine, you can get it in medium, you can get it in transparent looking colors, or you can get it in full colored. Just I think that this, some people say even that it's the Namiki Emperor. Maybe it doesn't have that same feel, that same weight. Obviously not. But, it doesn't have that Urushi color. But let me tell you, at the price, I think it's an alternative. Now, let me get to my 630 flat. If I said 699, I made a mistake. It's the 630. So this is the, sorry, that's me, Wing Sung 630. So it's the flat top with a number 8 steel fine nib. And it's got that little bit of feedback that you can expect from a pilot or even from a sailor, So just a beautiful pen. I mean, I invite you to look at my review. It has a little issue about how it closes here. It's not smooth. But you know what? I don't care. I enjoy this pen. I really enjoy it. Then we got Vizier. One of my favorite Indian companies, just because they're not expensive. And this is the Vizier. I forget what they call it. I think they call it the flat top or something like that. I think it comes in different colors. It's got a vizier. Is this the double broad? One second. Just bear with me here. Yeah, this is the, no, this is the broad steel nib. I mean, I haven't touched this pen in all week, really. I chose these pens last week, and they're working beautifully. This is the other vizier black, I think they call it. Yeah, this one has a double broad. Take a look at that nib. It's kind of an embossed, engraved nib, special nib. That you pay a little more for, but if you want to get the sense that you have that beautiful nib at a low price, there you have it. It's steel. It's number 6. Juicy, 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 juicy. Just very, very nice. I got to tell you, beautiful, just beautiful pen, and beautiful nib. Yeah, it's not, but you know what? It gives you that sensation. It's bulky, it's big, it's nice. Another vizier. And this is the vizier, I think, with a Yowo nib. So, yeah, well, look at this. You see, I have a Yowo nib in here, and it dries up. I have a vizier, and it doesn't. Yeah, sorry about that one. This one is a Yowo. What is it? I guess it's a medium nib. Just bear with me. I'm just going to kind of push it a little bit and see that, so we can actually write with it. But it was my last choice. But just to show you that, you know, you spend more for this pen with a Yowo nib, and the vizier nib gives you more. Here we go, vizier. I think this, they call it Meteor Shower with a Yowo medium nib. So sometimes not worth going for the name nib or the brand name nib. You can stick to the vizier, cost you less. So there you have it, my KOP alternatives. Be right back. Next category is, I've always wanted a CONID bulk filler. Pen is, I believe, completely overpriced. I think it's in the $1,000. And I don't believe it has anything other than a Bach nib at the end of the day. You know, it's not PELIKAN or it's not Pilot, you know, in terms of original or even Sailor. And the number one alternative that I think everyone should own is this V200. This is just a spectacular pen. I got to tell you, this titanium, I think it beats its sister P36. I just like the flat top. It just resembles so much the CONID. And in a recent interview, so you look at a recent review of Shaq MD, what he does is he puts a Sailor nib on this thing. And there you have it. I mean, yeah, you got to own a Sailor 1911. But if you have a Sailor 1911, which is only, you know, a few $100s and not thousands, you can put it in that Asvine, but you got to have an Asvine nib unit, not the Bach unit, according to Shaq. And he transformed that pen into a super pen. So it's an idea or not. If not, stick to this Asvine M. I mean, medium nib, very nice. The other choice that I have, and I have a, I meant to actually show you this is a Pen BBS 355 transparent, but it broke on me. It just, the filling system doesn't work. I think I tried to dismantle it and I couldn't get it back together. So you'll forgive me, but just imagine this as being the transparent demo version of the 355. Again, it is really comes close to, in terms of writing experience, to the CONID and indeed to that Asvine. You've got, of course, the titanium P36, the Asvine P36. And then I thought I'd throw in TWSBI. You know, this little pen costs $50, $60 with a 1.1 or with the stub. Is just a beautiful writer, as you'll see in a second. And while I was at it, I thought that from the skeleton pens, in terms of writing experience, this what is it, Moon Man? Just bear with me. I don't want to. Moon Man. Yeah, T6. This T6 writes beautifully. In fact, let's get to the writing sample right away. Whoop, 1 second. Here we are. This is the Moon Man, or really Majon. What did I say? T6. Apologies. With a Majon medium nib. Beautiful. Just spectacular. Gotta tell you. Very nice. Then I got my TWSBI. Now, one viewer really had some hard time with TWSBI. It's kind of been his bad luck pen. I feel sorry for that gentleman or that woman. I forget if it was a female or a male. But I mean, that individual made it perfectly clear to me that he's not going to touch a TWSBI again. You know, it's kind of a hit and miss sometimes, but this pen, to me anyway, is just, it's the Echo Indigo with a stub. One of my best writers. Again, less than $100. You get a really nice writing experience. Next on the list, this is the Asvine P36, and it has a Asvine. Is it a medium or a fine? Oh no, this is right. This is the Bach fine nib. Very nice, actually. Don't like Bach nibs usually, but this one writes really, really nicely. So I wanted to show you one with the, because often the Asvine come with either a Bach nib and Bach unit or an Asvine unit. And as compared to my Asvine V200 that has a Asvine unit, but we'll get there in a second. This is my Pen BBS .355 with a Pen BBS medium number 6 steel nib. These Pen BBS nibs have a little more tooth to it, so you get a nice feedback. They're not as juicy and wide as a Kegaloo, for example, but still very comparable to the Majon and Asvine nibs. Very nice, and these Pen BBS pens are just really, really nice pens. And then finally, of course, the winner. To me, I'm not buying a CONID. I think I'm going to buy 3 or 4 of these things. And if I can get a Sailor nib in there, that's right. That's what I'm working on. I just can't find, I don't think you can buy nibs. I think you got to buy the pen, unfortunately. But if I can find a Sailor nib, for anybody who wants to sell me one, let me know. Asvine. This is the V200. And this is with the Asvine. This is a fine nib. I don't like the fine nib. I prefer the Asvine medium nib, but I did want to have a fine nib in my collection. So I'm going to order maybe a couple of these pens and put in different nibs. And if I can find a Sailor nib. I thought I had it in my 1911, but I got a feeling that my 1911 is not the large size. It may be the, the smaller size, because the nib just is too small for this. So it's not the same nib that Shaq MD was referencing. So I got to get my hands on a Sailor nib or even a Pilot nib so I can sneak it in there and see what gives. So there you have my CONID bulk filler Alternatives. Now, last but not least, I'd like to show you just a series of pens that I think maybe don't fit any particular category, but that I think, kind of honorable mentions and that could easily constitute very nice pens at very low prices. I've got my Lotus Arthur, just writes just beautifully. And by the way, they just come up. Peyton Street has several Arthur new models. I'm going to snap some up. This CanWrite Heritage, a lot of people don't like CanWrite, cheap quality and all the rest of it, but let me tell you, I've got this Flex CanWrite nib there that is just glorious. Just glorious. Really, really nice nib. Talk about a Grail pen. This is a Grail pen to me. Just the way it looks. So the Ongdian D5 with that beautiful springy nib. I don't know, maybe we could have included this in the kind of Pelikan-ish look because of, but the flare is different. And it stands on its own. But, there's nothing preventing us from saying that this is a Grail pen. And an alternative in the sense that it only costs you 50, 60 bucks. The Bennu pens, the Euphorias, they could be Grail pens in and of themselves with this glitter. And they got those beautiful Schmidt nibs that just run so wet and juicy. How can you miss, So I want an honorable mention to this Micarta from Cyprus. And if you're willing to spend just a few dollars more, you can get a 14 karat Cyprus gold nib. So for 150 bucks, you get something that's really, really nice. And, could constitute a Grail pen. Alternative, anyway. This big, huge Opus 88. I mean, these things are workhorses. Put on a stub there or even a broad nib. It's got that big reservoir. It's got a big shape, very comfortable, very reliable pens. I got about 5 or 6 of these. I mean, these are really nice. When I show this around a conference day, I was like, what is that? What is that? I mean, look, we kind of take them for granted, but this is a beautiful, if nothing else, it's a CONID bulk filler alternative. This little Fuluin that resembles a, Faber-Castell. What I did is I replaced it with a Kegeloo number 5 size nib. Wow. All of a sudden you got a Faber-Castell in your hands. You know what I'm saying? So nice alternative in my mind. This MONTBLANC Marcel Proust, is it? Knockoff or inspiration or clone, I think is a beautiful pen. It's got this Majon medium, or this one has actually the fine nib that writes so smoothly. And when you put it in your hands, you feel like you're holding a nice MONTBLANC. Nice alternative. Why not? I got to give honorable mention to these little Scrivener pens. They don't look like anything that's Grail, but I had to throw it in just because of the nib. That nib as a Schmidt number 5 medium nib, some of the best nibs that I've written with. Both this model and the other more standard black classic model. I think that one, the other one I have is a broad nib. I got to tell you, honorable mention, these little things are just fabulous. So I just wanted to throw in all of these as kind of viable alternatives to look at so you could have an enjoyable writing experience. It's been very long. I know if you've resisted or if you actually watched this whole video, I know it was long, and there was no other way for me to do it other than split it, and I didn't want to split it. So there you have it. But they're timestamps. You can look at them and individually and take a look, in different episodes, if you will, and split them up. You don't have to digest all of this all at once. But there you have it. I hope you've appreciated what I've tried to do here. It was a nice adventure. I enjoyed doing it. Stay tuned. Please subscribe. We're going to get back to our weekly recap format, I think, by next week. And we've got all kinds of other things coming up. So enjoy your pens. Grazie, buongiorno, buonasera, arrivederci, a bientôt. See you soon. Thank you.